All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Pumped today to have Seth Maniscalco on the podcast. Seth, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Good. I appreciate it. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate taking the time. For everyone listening who doesn't know who you are, would you mind giving everyone just a little intro to you and basically what you do?
I own the Crypto Wealth Coach. We help with investments in the crypto markets. We try to steer and guide and have a model portfolio and an investment thesis and help folks win. And we just recently had a book, Prohibited Profits, come out, which is focused on 10xing your investments, not just crypto specific, but other markets as well. And, crypto is here and now, but these opportunities have come time and time again in history, not to the extreme of crypto, but, 4-digit ROIs.
Love it. No, that's cool. And I think for even more background, you used to do, or do you still do like general wealth management as well?
We have a small hedge fund in the futures commodities market that we manage.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Have you been doing hedge funds for a long time? Has that been something you've done, for a while?
It's relatively new for me, 2018.
Got it. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty new. So for the crypto side of things, obviously, I guess depending on what circles you run around in, I guess I would say it feels like it's gotten a lot of steam as of late. I'm trying to think. I think I bought my first crypto in 2014. So I've actually been in it for I think that's considered quite a long time.
That's impressive. No,
Yeah,
congrats.
my cousin got me into it. I think I bought Ethereum when I know it was like a little over $100. That was like my first dip into crypto. But anyway, for everyone who's listening, I thought it was really interesting in your background, just like actually having like a wealth management minded focus around crypto. Because I think, as you probably deal with all the time, a lot of the people that I talk to or listeners that reach out, I feel like there's like two parties, either one that's really bullish on crypto and tries to learn all about it and trades it a lot, or at least owns quite a bit of it. And then there's a whole nother side of things where people are very hesitant and don't really understand it. And it's very confusing for folks who probably somewhere in the middle or fall into either of those two categories. How do you kind of even start the conversation with people around getting to understand what crypto is and how to get involved?
It's really all of the above, right? Yeah, no, there's a conversation to be had around scarcity and what it is, a store of value and how to store it, and how being decentralized eliminates the middleman. There's many industries that have a middleman, albeit politicians or governments or real estate investor or realtors and so on. But it eliminates the opportunity for lying or psychopaths and somebody who's just not telling the truth.
Got it. Okay. And for people who, obviously now there's just so many coins, there's so many different things you can get involved in. What do you tell people usually, like, what's the best way to jump in and get started?
Right. Yeah. It's obscene. There's something 18,000 plus coins out there, and that's not an exaggeration. It's ridiculous. But Bitcoin is king, right? I mean, Bitcoin is not going anywhere. It's the biggest. It's doing its job. It's gold 2.0 essentially, and it works. It may not be the fastest on the planet, but it works and it does its job. So Bitcoin is the easiest to get. I firmly recommend cold storage, having a little hardware device instead of a wallet, like a centralized wallet, Coinbase,
okay.
Binance, or somebody else who, a middleman, again, right?
Yeah.
Who has possession of your coins.
Interesting. Because it's funny you say that. I bought my first one on Coinbase. I think that back then that was probably the easiest way to get involved. But I did think that was kind of funny. I remember at the beginning, like learning about crypto and understanding that, a big component of that is decentralization. but then I'm paying a fee to Coinbase to get it. And I was like, well, hold on a minute. Isn't that kind of that's like the whole point?
Well, there's a fee to Coinbase and the blockchain, right? So
Right.
if you eliminate Coinbase and have your own ownership and sovereignty over your money, get the government out of your money, rather than being taxed and told what to do, and reckless spending and unbalanced budgets and greedy politician nonsense, all that stuff that goes on.
Got it. Yeah. And for someone who wants to, get their coins in cold storage, how do you kind of go about doing that? Is there like certain platforms you recommend, or certain ways to how do you acquire coins that way?
Ledger supports well over 2,000 coins. Trezor, I'm not sure the exact number, over 1,200 or something. And they're not big devices. I don't think I have one right here. Sorry, I apologize.
No, you're fine. No, it's good.
But for $150, you can go ledger.com and they'll ship it right to your house in cellophane, manufactured, sealed. Nobody's messed with it, right?
Got it.
With it, that's the important thing. You can always reset the device if you really truly want to be certain. But yeah, for $150, you can store $999 billion or whatever. All of the Bitcoin if you wanted to.
If you were able to get it.
Yeah, right.
How do you get it onto the device? Like what platform are you using to actually use a cash to purchase Bitcoin?
Well, that's the on-ramp. That's what Ledger doesn't support, or at least, well, maybe they were supporting or coming live online with Ledger Live. Anyway, that's a fiat gateway. That's where Coinbase comes into play, Binance, Kraken, Bittrex, etc. So yeah, somebody to convert your money into Bitcoin, and it's good because the U.S. government just keeps printing more and more and more of it, and there's more demand, right? Supply and demand for Bitcoin and crypto, and the dollar value just keeps going up.
I think I heard a stat the other day that 40% of the world or the U.S. cash has been printed in the last year. Have you heard something like that? I don't know if it's true or not. I just keep hearing that.
Yeah, it is true. I think it's 18 months, 2 years, but it's obscene. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. What happens? Like what's the outcome? I know we're going way off into that. That could be a whole nother conversation, but
yeah, I guess you can either wreck the stock market or the economy. You can't have both, right? There's no scarcity in the dollar, and people don't trust it, and it's lost something like 96% of its value in the last 115 years. Purchase, power.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. Well, it's interesting too. So if someone's interested in getting into crypto, like you just offered some ways, like the cold storage way. I know I've used Coinbase. Is actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I know it's not cold storage, obviously, but I've also bought some through Robinhood, for example, because there was no fees, but they're technically holding it as well. So that's just as unsafe, I guess.
Yeah. So again, it's going to depend on when you see this video and where you are on the globe. But they were working on having withdrawal abilities on the website, but that was just one. They did start out, you're correct, having and only operating in derivatives. So you had on your hardware wallet, or excuse me, your software wallet on your iPhone or Samsung, whatever device that you have, but you couldn't withdraw it. So the first rule of crypto is not your keys, not your cheese. Meaning you don't own it. So you don't have possession of your coins. It's a harsh reality, but it's very true. So that's where the smaller Ledger and Trezor come into play, and the ownership.
So does that mean like you can't, like,
right?
You could sell it for its fiat cash value, but you couldn't use it to purchase whatever you wanted? Is that what that means?
Well, there's different ways to spend Bitcoin, either direct or, using a credit card or debit card or something. There's different methods. And again, depending on where you are, the banking regulations restrict may or may not be able to do. But yeah, absolutely. That's one way to do it. Or you can just send it direct. If you have an address, you would share that with me and I would send you a Bitcoin and purchase whatever, a pizza, right? That's the way the whole thing started.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I guess if you own, like for me owning some on Robinhood, you're saying I can't use like my value of Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever the coin is on Robinhood to then go purchase something off of Robinhood. At this point, you have to like sell it back for cash.
Their policy, right, was no direct withdrawals.
Got it.
Convert back to cash on their website and then withdraw cash. They may have since changed that. I don't know. It depends on when you see this. They were working on it, but at the time that was their strict hard policy. But the world's adapting. People are starting to understand. You can't go to the airport anywhere without seeing crypto.com in your face on the billboards and commercials, and it's here. It is mainstream. Doesn't mean it's not volatile and that it's not perfect. It has its own problems. Again, it may take 10 minutes to have a transfer. It's not instant. You're not gonna use it at the grocery store and
sure
giving you nasty looks behind you and daggers in the back of your head, because it's just not fast enough. But if you want to buy a Lamborghini or a yacht or whatever, people are happy to wait 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting too. I know this is just one fun example I saw the other day. Like supplements, I buy from like a supplement company on their website, and they launched like the ability to use crypto now to buy things. It's cool to start to see, especially e-commerce companies start to fall that way. I thought it was funny. This is totally random, but I just thought of this as you were saying crypto.com. Watching the playoff games yesterday, I feel like crypto.com has done such a good job of having like quirky commercials that I think are going to get people to like check it out. Like I saw one yesterday where, I don't know if you saw this or not, but the guy like looks down at his phone and gets a ding and he's like, "Oh, I'm a millionaire." And he like quits his job and buys a yacht. And then it dings again. And he goes, "Oh wait, I'm not a millionaire." And he's like back at his shitty job. And then he dings again. And he's like, I'm a millionaire. And he's like throwing his stuff out. It's like, "I'm quitting." It's hilarious. He's like, it's like back and forth and dinging. And it's saying like, like buy responsibly or whatever. I'm like, that's, they're getting smart. They're getting people to like, they're using a lot of the things I think people like shit on crypto for as like a marketing tactic, which I thought was great. What would you say for people? I would tell you like the most consistent feedback I get of like naysayers of crypto tell me, and you kind of alluded to it, as like things are starting to adopt it and use it as payment. That's like the key. But I have a lot of people that tell me, what's the point yet of getting into crypto if I have to use cash to buy a coin and then I have to sell the coin to get it back into cash? And like, that's when I know I've done well with crypto, right? It's like I make money. And when I say money, I mean cash. Until it's like we're using Bitcoin for everything. What's the point? What's like your piece of advice for people who have that type of perspective?
They're probably just not aware of MasterCard and Visa and debit card Bitcoin solutions. Again, depending on which country you are in, there's banking regulations, and certain solutions will only apply if you're in the USA or Britain or wherever. But my guess is they're not aware of those kind of simple solutions that do exist. A lot of folks use what is it, Cash App, and this is their Stripe and PayPal. Facebook is now Meta and the metaverse, and the world is changing. So 10 minutes isn't a big deal. Even your credit card is an instant. That takes 48 hours to clear and has its own problems. There's fees that go with that. Which are much higher than Bitcoin's fees. Not necessarily Coinbase's fees, but again, if you and I just work directly, then you can cut out the middleman, that is Coinbase or any other third party.
Got it. It makes a ton of sense.
It's right. Like if you really want freedom, you have to have control and no interference from any government.
Right. Yeah, no, right. I was going to say, and that kind of goes right into my next question, which was, I would say that the second most talked about, I guess, argument I hear or see online, with people that listen to the show is around just, is the ability to stay deregulated realistic long term? Like I hear so many times, like, won't the government eventually step in and, try to put their claws in it some way, shape, or form? What's your thoughts on that, as you're obviously a lot closer to this stuff?
Sure, there absolutely. There's regulation that will come and happen and exist, but it will be the on ramps and the centralized exchanges, and that's what they can touch and control. Again, cold storage between two parties, no.
Yeah.
But anything else, yes. And I guess, if you didn't already have it before, then it's more difficult to obtain after the fact. But hey, politicians love to get donations in Bitcoin too.
Sure. I
So,
bet.
they get paid. The alcohol was under prohibition, and cannabis now is being taxed. And you look at psilocybin, and these patterns have happened time and time again in history, whether it's that or something else, or who knows in the future. And that's what the book Prohibited Profits is about. That's really the concept, is to find those bigger strategies, because they do happen.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I was going to say, and to switch gears a little bit, I'd love to hear about your book. So that's kind of the thesis. What can people who want to learn more about your book expect to learn?
It's looking at the investment strategy from a different standpoint, taking on more risk to reap bigger rewards with smaller amounts. You don't need to risk the house or the farm. You don't need to be super risky. You can take a couple hundred or a couple $1,000 and multiply it 10 times or 20 times or more. It does happen. But if you spread it out and have the diversified risk and a good investment thesis for what you're investing in, my preference is to have a strategy of good companies to invest in. A lot of folks have a gambling strategy, and they do Dogecoin and meme coins and dragon coins and you name it. Again, with 18,000 coins, there's no shortage. I think 97% of those 18,000 coins are all doomed to fail at some point eventually, just like all fiat currencies are doomed to fail. It's not perfect. It will evolve. Technology evolves and advances, and it's what we do, right?
Yeah. And
steel and fire, and before that we traded animals and shells, and kings married daughters, and kingdoms merged, and right, it's the human history. It's crazy.
That's true. Yeah, right. It's like another evolution of some of that. Super interesting. So, I mean, anyone listening to this, whether they want to read your book or potentially work with you, do you just it's funny. Again, maybe because the podcast has always had this finance feel to it. I've gotten questions on like a lot of, how to get started, which I'm by no means, the person to ask that question to. I just like to talk about it and meet people who know a lot more than I do. But the one thing I've always said with investing that's worked for me is, like, one of my strategies is, it's basically every time I get paid, I just have like a set percent that I know I'm putting to the side, and I invest it. It's just like a constant thing that's always happening. I always say it's like that. It's just compounding. It's, you look back from a year ago and you're like, well, if you invested the same amount 52 weeks in a row, obviously that's going to be a lot better than like sitting back and like being like, oh shit, it's been 3 months since I've invested. Now I got to try to chunk some money up. You're going to end up spending it, or usually probably not putting it back into that. Do you suggest for people with crypto, as you've alluded to, there's so many coins, Ethereum, Bitcoin, there's a few that like are obviously like the leaders right now. Do you suggest people kind of do what I would say like a lot of old school investing look like, which was like, at least start by buying companies you've heard of, just like get in the game? Or do you suggest diversifying? How do you kind of like at a super, and I'm sure it's different for everybody. It's probably a hard question, but how do you kind of like start that journey for people, like where to start?
Who I always throw it back, sort of, I guess,
Okay.
info. It's like, who are you? What kind of an investor are you truly? Don't lie to yourself. How much time can you invest? And are you going to be disciplined enough to place trades and close trades and properly manage a portfolio? We're all human, and we have emotions and fear and greed, and money is tied deeply to that at our
Yeah.
core. That's why the movie Jaws did so good. Certain human fears that, if you can hit, are real, and money is one of them. So yeah, just being aware of that, and I think that's the way to go.
Love it. No, that's great. It's funny too. I think crypto is interesting because I know a lot of people that, just from what, maybe again, this is totally anecdotal, just as from what I hear from people who reach out to me, a lot of people seem to your point, you said it earlier, gamble a little bit more. It seems like people want to like ride the waves and sell and buy. I was just thinking back, I'm like, I've always just purchased. I've actually never sold any crypto positions. I've just keep buying more. Do you have any suggestions around that? Just because of its volatility in general, where it's so much different, in my opinion, than stocks, right? Where not necessarily is it, something happens and B's the result in the stock market either, but sometimes there's at least a little bit of a correlation, whether it's macro or micro with the company. With crypto, I feel like, I don't know. I open my account one day and I'm like, oh, great, it's way up. And 20 minutes later, I feel like I have no sense of like why, besides like just simple supply and demand. So what do you normally tell people who want to like invest in crypto? Like, how does the strategy around crypto differ from, stocks and their other types of investments?
Well, there's a lot of ways to answer that. And at the end of the day, the simple answer is Bitcoin is the best performing asset in all of human history, period. It's something ridiculous like 6 million% or whatever. That goes up wickedly by 7 figures every day.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. It's never happened before. It's never existed before. Again, it's not perfect, but it's the first true. Are you going to miss that? For me, the bigger risk is not having a position in that.
That's what I say too.
You can't risk 3% of your portfolio. Okay, 1%. Can you risk 1% for the possibility to do 100x in the next 10 years? That seems like a smart play to me.
I'm with you. Is that what you tell people? Are those like rough, are those rough percents that you kind of say lead with?
Well, it's all speculation. There's no guarantees. Past performance does not predict future return. Right. All those legal disclaimers. However, looking in the past it does sometimes predict the future. And again, 6 million%, the best performing asset in all of human history. It does have scarcity. There are only 21 million Bitcoin, and something like 4 or 5 million of them have been lost. So it's even more scarce.
Yeah, right. I forgot. I always forget that.
Right. Yeah. Who knows? They may turn up. There occasionally it does happen. Thousands of Bitcoin move from one wallet to another on whale reports, and it does happen. But there will never be more. So it has that scarcity and store value, and people trust it, right? Like it's about what we agree is the store value and what we can trust. There used to be gold coins, but then they would clip off the ends of the coins, and people got to the point where the coins eroded and they didn't trust the coins anymore. So it's about trust, and people trust math and computers and algorithms that can't be fudged. Bitcoin's the on-ramps, Coinbase and Bittrex and Binance. And, you know, if somebody was silly enough to write down their ledger password and leave it in their sock drawer, and the maid comes along.
Yeah.
Some disastrous situation, which sucks, but at the end of the day, that was your responsibility. Sounds great to fire the banks and get rid of the middleman. And, you know, the middleman is bad in that narrative. However, it also puts 100% of the responsibility on you. There's no 1-800 Bitcoin tech support that you call when you forget your password. It's, again, gone forever. 4 or 5 million coins gone forever, because people didn't put a whole lot of value on it when it was pennies to the dollar either. Had they understand and seen 12 years into the future, who knows? That's the problem with computers. They have short lifespans, so you need to be constantly upgrading. And if you don't write your passwords down and store them somewhere safe, then you're going to have problems, because nobody right forever. No, we're all human.
That's a really good point to make, though, because I think we didn't really even hit on that before. And for people listening who don't know a ton about cryptocurrency, that was something I remember when I first signed up. It's a different thing to wrap your head around, because everything, and even crypto obviously, is so digital. But then there's a password you have to save down. And a lot of people say, obviously, like, don't keep it on a shared folder. Don't do anything on your computer with it, because if someone got that and hacked it, they could steal all your crypto essentially. So what do you normally tell people? Do you normally tell people to keep it in some type of cold storage? Like, I know for me, it's funny now I think about it. I have a flash drive that I have a lot of like stuff on. But what happens if like I accidentally like stepped on it or broke it? You know what I mean? It's like, I always feel like maybe you need like multiple. Is that maybe the key?
Well, Ledger and any device like that has, right, it's not a password, but it's your key. It's your digital key. That's where not your keys, not your into play, right? So, and when you initially set up the wallet and turn it on for the first time, yes, you write that down as part of the setup process, and you do that once and once only. And those are considered your keys. So where do you store that now that you're written it down on a piece of paper, right? Like, how long is paper going to last before somebody spills soda or water on it, or whatever happens, right? Like, it gets burned. A fire. I mean, it falls in a lake. I mean, there's 100 disastrous situations. And the irony is that the answer to that question is in a safety deposit box in the bank. I guess.
So funny.
Right. So again, fire the middleman. But so it's not perfect. I guess if someone, I don't know, hacked into your safety deposit box and got a hold of that, well, you're screwed anyway, too.
Sure.
So, it's only 99.9% effective. But I guess that's, if I had to think of a play, that's the best place to keep it. If I think about it, probably two of them, two bank vaults. Anyway,
I see how you could go, deep into like where you could store it. What's funny is so my business partner is very much like, he writes everything down in the back of his notebook, like passwords. And I'm the opposite. I probably have mine not safe enough, and it's in notes apps and stuff on my phone, which I guess
that's doubly worse, right?
Which is that doubly worse? That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
If you don't have antivirus software or whatever, Norton, who knows?
Okay.
The rich idiot is famous for crypto. He's got some history sailing around the world and evading governments. And anyway.
Oh, I don't even know if I've heard that story. Now I got to look that up.
John McAfee. Oh, he's a piece of work.
Oh, that's funny. The guy that came up with the antivirus?
Longer with us, John.
Oh, okay.
He lived a wild life. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look this up.
He launched that company 40 years ago, lived the rich playboy life, and was big into crypto. He tried to run for US president and took donations in Bitcoin and crypto, and took a lot of drugs too, and lived, he was not 100%.
Got it. Oh, I didn't even know this. That's awesome. I'm going to have to look this up now. Now my mind is peaked. So why is again, I asked some of these questions. I think there are a lot of, simple, not dumb questions, just simple questions for someone who's new.
Sure. There's nothing to be embarrassed of.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people too. So like for me, let's just say this. I have a notes app on my iPhone. And it's a locked notes app. So you have to have a password to get into the notes app. Why is that why is it not a good idea, or why is it unsafe to share or to like store your key?
Well, is it backed up on the cloud?
Yes.
So anybody gets a hold of your iCloud account theoretically could get a hold of your passwords and make a withdrawal.
Got it.
That doesn't happen. Again, that's a worst case doomsday scenario that shouldn't happen. There's better ways to store those passwords too, right? But it's all about where what's convenient and what's practical and where the rubber meets the road. And you can lose your device too, right? If you've got certain extra layer, second layer, like Google Authenticator tied to your accounts. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks have it for bank accounts as well, and website logins, etc. To make sure you are who you are when you log in. Second layer, two-factor authentication.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you suggest that too. I do use that for some stuff.
I suggest it, but you can also lose those devices. And then the benefit is, if you've got your coins on Coinbase, then they'll take a picture of you, your ID, and you got to write a statement that says, I am who I am and today's date is X, and they'll verify it and get you back into your account, same as you would any other way through Verizon or Amazon. Yeah. Your bank, all works the same way.
I have a quick funny story that actually happened to me. Somehow I couldn't get into my Coinbase account, and I had to go through that process. But I remember having like a heart attack, because that's where I bought like my initial coins way back in the day. And I don't remember what happened, but it was probably a couple of years ago now. And I had to do the whole thing. It was like take a picture with my ID, I think, like a selfie with my ID or something. Yeah. I remember being like, please God, let me get back into this. I was almost one of those 5 million.
Well, that's the thing, right? So there's a lot of successful, happy stories around explosive profits in crypto investing. And everybody loves to sell the dream. There's a real side, and there's a rubber meets the road. Sure. And how much people spend. Again, are you doing it as a lottery strategy, or you're sitting on this for 10, 15, 20 years and passing it down to your kids, or are you trying to pay the mortgage with your profits in the next days? So good
point.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, who are you as an investor, and how much time can you invest, and what are your goals, and customizing it to who you are, right? Like, don't think you're going to be a professional day trader or the short-term trader. Like, you want to be sitting in front of the computer 8 hours a day, or do you have a family and wife and kids, which I do, and that's where I'd much rather spend my time,
Right.
And hey, that's all well and good, and day traders pay more taxes anyway because they're short-term trades. So there's no right or wrong. It's just who you are and what are your goals.
Sure. No, and that's great context. One of the only other questions that I wanted to ask that I hear a lot is around just the overall price. So like the overall price of Bitcoin and Ethereum, I get the question a lot of how high do you think it can go, or like, is it at its peak? And I always then frame people back to just like economics 101 of just supply and demand. And you hit on it earlier. Like there's a fixed amount of Bitcoin. It's never going up. It's never going down. It could go down if people lose it. Right. But there's never gonna be more. So as more and more people adopt it, obviously the demand would go up. The supply stays flat or down. And so the price should continue to go up. Do you have any perspective on that? Because I think that's another piece that people who are very novice in this and don't really know a ton about it, like, I think the ceiling is just so much higher than most people realize, just given the background of what a lot of crypto is, like the technology it's based on.
Bitcoin has no ceiling because the dollar and fiat has no floor. They just more and more of it. Like there is no limit to how many dollars there can be. You look around the globe, and there's certain countries where their dollar is just worthless. Like, they've got thousands of them throwing in the air like confetti, and it doesn't buy a hot dog.
Crazy.
And you can't fit it in your pocket. Like at that point, it just becomes impractical. So again, enter digital dollars. Everybody's got a phone. Well, most everybody. Folks that don't have a phone and have to rely on banks have to rely on banks and the bank's approval to have access. But most folks these days, we have Obama phones and free phones, and they're pretty common. Not 100% of everybody has a phone, but pretty much the top 97% of the planet, I think. That number, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Maybe
yeah, no, but most people, right? Yeah, 9.7 out of 10 probably.
And Bitcoin's adoption compares to the internet's adoption. When you look at adoption curves, they're like a J curve. There's an initial drop, and then boom, exponential growth, and it takes off from a return on your investment perspective as well.
Got it. Yeah. No, it's wild, right? I mean, you've said it a few times on here. It's like,
there's going to be profits and manipulation. And again, it's not a perfect system. It's like the stock market. The stock market isn't perfect either. Manipulation, this and insider trading and politicians doing who knows what. Yeah. Turn on any headline in the country and there's a nasty story somewhere.
Right.
But that, again, that's the human nature element of it. And it exists in Bitcoin, right, too. I mean, people say if Bitcoin's used for criminals, and, it's not like the dollar isn't.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you really want to commit crimes and not get caught, the dollar is the better way to go, because there's no master database of every dollar serial number. It doesn't exist. Where you can see on the Bitcoin and open public blockchain who sent what, and if I sent you a Bitcoin, there's a record of that. It exists, and it exists forever.
Right. Can anyone access that? Like, how does, I guess I never really, I knew it's public, but how do you I'm sure it's complicated, but how do you go through and see all the transactions?
Yeah, no, there's websites where you just type in, you have to have the transaction ID or the wallet. And
okay.
Yeah, it's like, it's a poor example, but I guess if you wanted to triangulate somebody with antenna towers to their cell phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like connecting the dots. And again, that's a very weak example, but it's
sense,
not, you have to have advanced technology and research too. Like there's no name tied to it specifically. So if you go through Coinbase, yes, Coinbase has a copy of your driver's license, or Bittrex or Binance or any of the other on-ramps and third parties, right? Like they cooperate with the government for the most part. There's some that don't, the 20% out there that don't cooperate in decentralized exchanges, but for the most part, there's a record of you somewhere. So
sure,
if you really want to go out of your way, you can try and be super private on a public blockchain that nobody knows you have the wallet. If it's that important to you, there's other ways to do it, right? There's privacy coins out of the 18,000 coins out there that exist that solve that problem. However, it works.
Sure.
People are willing to accept it, and it's public and everybody trusts it. And why not?
Right. No, that makes sense. So we've talked a lot about obviously I'm bullish on it. So I'm sure my tone comes off like I'm very pro crypto. For you being really, what I would consider a professional in the space, what is the biggest, risk flaw for people who, should know, what's the biggest downside of getting into crypto?
It's not easy. It's a complex, difficult market that's not easy to navigate. And, it will improve and it will adapt. And that's why sites like Coinbase and the exchanges win, because they offer convenience And, the trade-off that you don't have to remember your keys or take responsibility for possessing them and making sure they don't fall in a lake or whatever.
Right.
That's the trade-off. But they also charge high fees. And there's been complaints about manipulation where, especially periods in the volatility where it's either high or low, and there's increased demand for people trying to sell or buy and, capitalize on profits, right? And then the website goes down, Coinbase goes down.
Right.
It happens multiple times during the year for well over a decade at this point, and always at the worst time, right? There's a little bit of drama to that, but there's still a record that can't be ignored. It's just always painful, but that's the price you're going to pay for using those on-ramps.
Got it. Totally makes sense. Love it. A ton of good information, Seth. So thank you for all of that. As we get towards the end of the hour and the end of the podcast, there's a few questions I'd love to ask everyone that comes on here. So I want to get your answers to these because I think they'll be really good. The first one is just essentially, as you mentioned, you said you're a married man with family, you're running multiple businesses. What do you do to, plan your big goals, whether that's annual goals, bigger goals? And then what tools do you use just to get shit done on a daily basis? Are you it's funny. I love asking someone in crypto this. Are you an app guy? Do you have just a pen and paper? Like, how do you plan your days and get shit done?
Well, yeah. My big goals and planning my day are sort of two different things. So, I plan the 500-year plan goes on a chalkboard and constantly evolved and upgraded too, right? Erased and rethought out and replanned. Where the daily grind is, I guess, about checklists and touching base and relationships and, the non-pretty part of the whole thing.
Got it. So a little bit of chalkboard, a little bit of pen and paper, it sounds like.
That's old school, I guess.
I love that. No, it's funny. Most founders I've talked to on here are pen and paper people. I really have probably gotten less than 10 people that have said that they're like diehard app people at this point.
We got blackboard chalk paint and painted an entire wall in blackboard paint.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
It's fun and it's big and you can get a lot of ideas and concepts on there and it works.
Very cool. Might have to do that in my office. I like that idea. The second question is source of knowledge that you want to share with the audience. Obviously, you wrote a book, so you can plug that at the end. If you have another one that either a podcast, a book, anything source of knowledge that you would highly suggest to people who are listening today.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on who you are. I don't know. There's if you don't know anything at all, there's the Bitcoin Standard.
Okay.
That's a great beginner book that will, not overload you and whatever, read a chapter a day. You don't have to absorb it all. It's like trying to eat an elephant, right? You can't sit down an elephant in a day.
That's great. I don't honestly know if I've read I've never read like a crypto book, so I might have to pick this one up too.
Yeah, it's if you're more of a business professional and you want to look at business solutions or how to integrate your business and get paid in with Bitcoin and the blockchain, this one's a good one. That'll help you think outside the box and maybe connect that you didn't think.
And what's that one called? Sorry, the blockchain competitive advantage.
Competitive advantage.
I'm going to write these down and I'll add links in the show notes to both of these for everyone listening. Awesome. Very cool. So those are great.
Worth it.
Very cool. I'm going to pick both those up because I am deep into this. Last question and the most important question. How can people follow you, Seth? How can people get involved with you if they want to work with you, whether it's on the hedge fund side or the crypto side? And then lastly, how can people buy your book?
SethManiscalco.com is my personal website. We don't solicit for the hedge fund. It's a private fund. It's really friends and family and people that we have a relationship with. It's a small circle. But yeah, that's my personal website. We of course, cryptowealthcoach.co for that. And the new book, prohibitedprofits.com, are all good ways to get in touch. And we've got social media links and podcast links and
Love
all
it.
that. So,
Awesome. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes too, so people can find it easily. But Seth, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. I know we've been planning this one for a while, so I'm glad we finally got to get on and do it. And I got to learn a bunch today, so I appreciate the time.
grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Seth, and I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right. Thanks.